Welcome, folks, to Hangout Cafe Live on Zoom. And I'm so glad that you've joined us today for what promises to be a meaningful conversation. Every conversation we have at Hangout Cafe is meaningful, but today is one that I'm sure a lot of people that know our guest barrister, Keji, they may be surprised by what she's going to say. So without much further ado, can I have Keji come on and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Good afternoon, Pastor Funke and everyone, and thank you for having me on Hangout Cafe today. So a little bit about myself. Well, first and foremost, I'm a child of God, a Christian. I worship at Jesus House. I have worshipped at Jesus House for 18 years. I also serve in a Christian ministry, the Elliott Generation. I'm a married mother. I'm a married woman. I've been married for 28 years. I've got 3 children, 25, 21, and 13. I work in IT as a software tester. I also work in events. I plan conferences and symposiums across different locations in Europe. And I run a gift business. So in a nutshell, that's me.
That's you. Thank you, Keji. So let me tell you a little bit about how this conversation, why today's happening. I was trying to remember now. If it was probably a couple of months ago or so, I think I sent you a message. Okay, so KG, we attend the same church, Jesus House, and I noticed that every time well, not even every time, every Sunday, she'll walk up to me, she'll say hello, even if if there are people around talking to me, she'll say hello. Um, she and her husband, just one day I just felt, I think it was a voice note I left, or what did I call? Okay. And I said, oh, thank you so much for always, I can't remember, but I thanked her for something. And then she sent me a message. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we had a conversation. That's when I found out about this hidden disability that she has. And I was shocked. Honestly, I was shocked because I never knew. Um, so, KJ, now that well, you already told us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about what happened 8 years ago when you were officially diagnosed with this hidden disability. Just give us a background.
If I'm to tell you about 8 years ago, I think I would have to go back a bit further than that.
Okay.
So if I go back 18 years ago,
Right.
just instances in the house where Shegun would say, the TV is too loud, Shegun, my husband. But to me, it would be like normal. And he would speak to me and I wouldn't quite hear him or what it was he was saying. In church, I would hear part of the sermon, but not all of the sermon. And, just a few other symptoms. And what that did was, for 10 years, back and forth, I thought, I think something's wrong with my hearing. But then I thought, no, nothing's wrong with my hearing. It was a back and forth. And then eventually, about 8 years ago, I was driving on the motorway and I went completely deaf, you know,
Wow.
um, on the M1. And I thought, oh, I better, you know,
Sorry,
get
wait, what do you mean by you went completely?
I
You were
couldn't
driving and then
hear
what happened?
anything for a few minutes.
Wow.
And that really scared me, as in nothing at all. You're driving and I could see, but the surround sound you hear,
Yeah.
nothing. I couldn't hear a thing.
Oh, wow.
So what that did was that led me to go to Specsavers. They have a hearing department there to
Okay.
go get my hearing checked. And they ran the test. They give you a result immediately.
Mm.
And she said, it looks like something is wrong, but I need you to go back to your GP. I think there I should have seen the red flag that it's not just wrong, it's seriously wrong.
Mm.
So what I did was I took the result back to the GP and then I went through a process of getting my hearing checked, my balance checked, just going through the series of checks. And then I ended up in a situation where I was sitting in front of the consultant, and he says to me that your hearing is severely impaired,
Wow.
and he also goes on to say, you're a bit too young for this diagnosis. Like what I can see and your age, they don't kind of match up,
Mm.
So he was trying to trace, okay, where, how, you know, how have you landed here? But we couldn't quite trace it because, I don't listen to loud music, which was one of the things. I've never been someone who went to concerts. I never went even as a child or a teenager. So it wasn't that. I've never worked in a loud studio. So we weren't sure, what had happened at that point.
Wow. So how did you feel, and how did your family feel when that happened? When you, at least, because I know you suspected that there was something wrong, but now that they had made it official, how did you feel?
So there was, I think for me initially, oh no, I really don't want this. But because I had been through a 10-year process of actually coming to terms with this might be the reality before I even got there.
Yeah.
When I had gone, I had made up my mind that, okay, I can either come from a place of gratitude or a place of being a victim.
Mm.
And I just thought being a victim is not going to get me anywhere. So I'm choosing to be grateful for everything else and
Okay.
just walk this journey with God, whatever it looks like, whatever the process is. Husband is good because for him, he's a solution provider. So for him, he was mentioning, Keji, the stigmas. I'm like, I know about the stigmas, but let's not talk about the stigmas. But what he was trying to do was find solutions so that um, it wouldn't impact, I wouldn't have to give up work or,
Right.
it just wouldn't impact me in negative ways. So looking for technical solutions for me.
Okay.
And, obviously he's had to adjust how we communicate as well,
Right. Okay.
but the children, you know how children are, especially these days, whatever version of a parent they get, they actually really don't care. They're like, okay, this is the version of a parent you are, you know. You're gonna love me, yes. You're gonna do the food, yes. You're still going to be, nothing has changed. So for them, they just get on with it. That,
Yeah.
okay, this is the version of a parent we have, and we just live with her and love her.
Okay, so let's talk. You mentioned stigma.
Yeah.
Tell us, did you ever experience any of this stigma?
If I experience stigma, I think it would be personally as opposed to externally.
Generally, okay.
Because I'm fortunate that the hearing aids I use, so I'm on my fourth set. The first set I used were brown, so they matched my skin tone. And at the time that I was diagnosed, my hair was short. And I remember thinking, I don't really want anyone to know. So the first thing I did was I grew out my hair.
Yeah, okay.
So there was no chance of there being a stigma because people couldn't see the devices.
Mm.
And then the second and the third sets I've had have been black, So even though I've gone back short, they're black, they're there, but no one can really see them.
Mm.
I think the only time I've been uncomfortable is if I'm having a conversation with someone one-on-one
Yeah.
and they catch a whiff of the fact that, oh, she's using hearing aids, and then they start staring. That's unnerving and uncomfortable.
Mm.
Yeah.
And do they ask? I'm sure some people don't ask. They probably just stare, but they don't ask. Do you?
Yeah, so they stare. So I think in the last 8 years, you're the fourth person that has actually asked any questions.
Mm.
So the first, obviously, my husband, just to make sure that I'm okay and see whatever adjustments we need to make. And also, I think for him, just wanting to understand exactly how do you hear? How do we communicate? How can
Mm.
I help?
Okay.
And then, second, my mentor. And I think my mentor came from a different angle. Okay, you've got this. and all this, her understanding, but also making sure that, okay, you still have to live a full life.
Yeah.
You're still a human being who God wants to use outside of this,
Hmm.
and then obviously my sisters, and then, you're the fourth person that's asked. Everybody else would tend to see it and stare. But I feel like the staring is not due to anything other than the fact that people are not sure what they can ask and what they
Yeah.
can't ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know that people also, I don't want to make her feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
so there's that version. And then there's also the version of, oh my gosh, where do we even start? What do I ask?
Okay, well, I did a bit of research and I found out that in the UK,
Mm,
there are estimated 900,000 people with severe or profound hearing loss,
mm,
and around 1.2 adults have hearing loss that are severe enough that they're not able to hear most of the conversational speech. And it says that in total, 11 million people in the UK have some degree of hearing loss. This could include mild, moderate, and more serious level. Wow.
mm.
It's I was going to say this, no, maybe common is not the word, but it's a lot of people have this um hearing severe or profound hearing loss, quite a lot of people. I mean, 900,000 is a lot of people. Okay, so in what ways has this journey of having severe impaired hearing, in what way has it impacted your family, or has it shaped your family and how you relate with loved one? So when you're speaking, just talk us through how it has impacted your family life.
So I think the greatest impact really is on Shegun, my husband. you
Okay.
know,
How?
and because he's the person that I see and communicate with every day and the
Okay.
most, for the last few years, we've been working at home.
Okay.
So he's got his space, I've got my space, and even just 2 days ago, because I'm on my fourth set of hearing aids. So for a few days I was without hearing aids, and I had a meeting, and Shegun was like, "Keji, the sound is on too loud."
Oh,
And all I could say was, "Sorry, can't you use headphones?" And I'm like, "No, I can't use headphones." So, he's constantly having to, adjust on a daily basis. Sometimes even just look that, is she wearing hearing aids before I even speak to her? Because I don't want a situation where I start a conversation and, she hasn't, heard me. But I always say to him that the cue is just call my name. That
okay.
way I'm looking at you and you know that even if I don't have hearing aids in, I'm able to read your lips or read what it is that you're saying to be able to respond to you.
Okay.
There's also the fact that when we go out, be it church or, a social setting, he has to, there's a way he sits where um, if a conversation is happening around a table,
Yes.
I'm not going to pick up most of that conversation. So
Okay.
he's communicating with, everyone and telling me what everyone is
It
saying.
would be
Yeah.
right.
So I might appear to be quiet, to look quiet. But the reality of it is I can't engage in a conversation if I can't process what's being said to even respond,
Mm, mm.
you know. In terms of the children, and this was just in the house yesterday, my son works from home on a Friday and he came downstairs and all he could say is, "Mom, it's so loud. It's so loud." you know. And I just looked at him and I said, "Actually, I can't hear you." Yes, it was one of those days where I'm like, I'm not in the mood for this. It's loud. Get on, get over it. You know, I said, and I would say to him, like, "You're whispering, I can't hear you," you know. And, he just looks at me and, so that's the impact, the fact that, it might be a bit loud, sometimes it might not be a bit loud. Just call me, don't start a communication without calling my name or making sure that I'm looking at you. Because if you do, I can't hear you. But I think like I said, the greatest impact really is on Shegun, because he's having to look out, make sure I'm okay, even when he's, going off doing his thing, on church on a Sunday, you might see that, he might have a few people to chat to. And I just sit. But by then, my hearing level of capacity to take in any more verbal information is full. But I also don't want him not to be able to do the things that he wants to do. So I'm also careful not to complain so that he
Okay.
doesn't feel under pressure. Because the minute I open my mouth, he's going to be like, okay, let's go home. And I don't want, that. So there's also that impact. But it took me a while to get to that place to realize that if I say I'm uncomfortable, then his instinct would be to, let's get you to comfort.
Mm.
Whereas my instinct should really be, okay, I'm uncomfortable, but can I, Lord, increase my capacity as opposed to, moving out of the environment, increase my capacity so that I can cope and so that he is not losing out and
Yeah.
constantly having to, lose out
Right.
because, I might be uncomfortable.
Wow. We thank God for a good husband, a great husband. I'm trying to, and please bear with me, and I'm sure the people that have joined us, they probably want to understand a bit more. So, I think when we had a conversation, you said that even with your hearing aid, it still takes, there's a like a delay in hearing what people are saying. Just talk us through that because, and then even this thing that you just said about capacity, is it that when you're hearing the noise, when you're sorry, not noise, when you're hearing people talk, it's a lot for your brain to process, or what is it? Please explain that.
So the first question was the delay. So
Yeah.
the hearing aid, what it does is it amplifies the sound.
Okay.
And imagine a situation where naturally the way your brain is wired up, just because your ears work naturally in a specific way. Imagine you're only used to hearing 4 out of 10. And
Okay.
then the hearing aid gives you now 10 out of 10. The hearing aid does not make up for the impact it has on the brain that acts as the receiver.
Right. Okay.
So for me, I've heard you, but I have to process what you've said.
Right.
And I'm not as fast as processing as someone whose hearing is, normal would
Right.
be.
Okay.
So what I'm doing is a combination of, especially when it's face to face, a
Mhm.
combination of listening, looking, and reading lips.
That's a
Now,
lot.
it is, but the Lord gives capacity.
Mm.
He gives the capacity that is needed and necessary.
Yeah.
Um, Now, in terms of the hearing aids, they have developed the technology. They've developed technology now
Right.
so that how I'm hearing is different. So it's
Okay.
impacting the brain different.
Okay.
And you can set a range. So
Uh-huh.
with the old hearing aids I had, the range was, quite wide,
Right.
and I could hear the stuff and, stuff going on behind me, to my left, to my right,
Okay.
quite loud. My
Okay.
brain couldn't cope with that. So I
Mm.
had to go back to the hearing clinic and explain to them and actually break down my lifestyle. And a big part of my lifestyle is I'm part of a church community.
Yeah.
And these are the requirements that I need these hearing aids to meet
Mm.
beyond me having personal one-on-one conversations.
Right.
So what she had to do then was reduce the range,
Okay.
which means that right now, if I walk into church,
Yeah.
if you're on my left and on my right,
Yeah.
I know you're there, but I cannot hear you.
Okay.
For me to be able to hear you, I need to be looking at you. So wherever my head is facing
That's where you
is
can.
what I can hear.
Okay.
But she set it up that way because I said to her that, look, I go to a church where there are musical instruments. I
Mm.
have turned down these hearing aids as low as I can.
Okay.
but it's still not working for me.
Okay.
And because they don't want you to operate without the hearing aids,
Mm.
because the other option would be I'm taking them out.
Okay.
This is not working. And she said, no, don't do that. We will reduce the range. But it just means that everything else around you will be aware of it, but you won't hear in detail.
Right.
So I could walk past you and you could call my name and
Mm.
I might not hear you. I'm not ignoring you.
Wow. And I can imagine that sometimes people have felt that this Keji, she's just, you call her, you talk to her, she doesn't answer. Have you had situations like
Yes, I've had instances like that. Like I went through a phase where a few people said to me that, oh, you're so friendly. We call you, you don't, because I can only manage so much speech,
that? Wow.
and if I'm in an environment where, there are 10, 20 people, then the best I can manage is, hi, how are you?
Wow.
If I have a long-winded conversation with you, then it means I can't greet the next person because it will just be too much for me. Because it's not just, the hearing, but me also going through a process of occupational therapy to
Mm.
figure out how does this work? What do I need? What do I need to do? What do I need not to do? And that process of occupational therapy, one of the conclusions she came to is I also deal with sensory overload. So if I become overloaded,
Yeah.
I can't cope or I develop a headache. So
It's, it's amazing what people go through and we don't know, but we just make assumptions. I mean, that for me is the number one thing that we should never, ever just make judgments about people without knowing what they're going through. Even now, it's making me feel a bit teary because I'm thinking, wow, all of that, you're trying to process that. And meanwhile, people are just thinking, oh, this cage self, wow. Does it sometimes, let me ask this, does it sometimes get, because even, I mean, I believe I can hear properly, but even in church, sometimes the music is too loud for me. Does it get too much for you?
it does. So there are some days, I have to say to Sean, is it me or is the music loud? And then he has to confirm whether it is me or whether
Always.
the music is generally too loud, but where he says, oh, it's a bit loud, then I'll know to just fiddle with my phone and just take the volume down or remove the music setting temporarily so that I can just take in. But in worst case scenarios, I just leave the worship center for a few minutes.
Yeah, you mentioned that sometimes you leave.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, Lord, I know I should be praying to increase my capacity right now, but can I just take a pause? Can I just, step out for a bit, and then come back, But while I'm out there, I'm like, just Lord, increase my capacity, so that I can. And some days I don't feel like, I just don't feel like praying for my capacity to be increased. Some days I feel like, I'm like, Lord, I feel like throwing a tantrum, but I won't, but.
And I'm sure God understands. He does. He does understand. I think it was Morenike that put here that all of this, we're trying to hear, and plus being a wife and mom, and it must be a lot that you go through. But I'm sure God has poured out an abundance of His grace upon you to be able to cope with all these various roles, and also the challenge of trying to hear people, listen to people, turn your head. God.
Well, when you're living and walking in it and it's your normal, you know,
Okay.
I
So
believe
for
that
you, it's your
it's a normal.
no.
So I don't know anything else.
Okay.
There are days, obviously, that I would need to wake up and be like, Lord, I kind of need help. I need
Mm,
help, grace, grace, grace.
yeah.
But I think what really helps is I don't kind of mess with my prayer life anyway, so I make sure that I'm connecting with God because I kind of feel like it's in the time and the seasons of connecting with God constantly and consistently being in the word
Yeah.
that he automatically just releases the grace that you need, so I'm not really focusing on myself.
Okay.
I'm working hard to focus on him. So on the outside, it seems like it's hard, but it might be hard, but it's just my normal. I don't know anything else,
Mm,
you
mm,
know. It's like when I went from, not using hearing aids to using hearing aids, that was my normal, to have the TV on loud, I'm just adjusting to a new normal and
right.
walking with the Lord while we adjust together, or I partner with him.
There was a question I was meant to ask you. I forgot about it. When you talked about being at home and having the TV or whatever it is loud, is that with or without your hearing aid? And do you
Um,
sometimes just you don't want to wear it?
you know, the doctors have been asking me that. Sometimes I don't want to wear it, because and the
Is it
hearing aid,
uncomfortable?
it's not completely comfortable. The mouth of it is silicone.
Right. Okay.
So there have been times in the past where I might develop sores in my
Hmm.
ear. So it makes it difficult to have it on for 12 hours.
Okay.
So around 5, 6, I would take them out, which means the volume of the TV, I would take the volume of whatever it is I'm doing
Okay.
up. And some days I wake up, if I wake up with a headache or I'm not feeling great,
Right.
2 weeks ago I had a cold. Hearing aids were out of the question because the cold got into my ears, so I'm like, I need to flush this out.
Okay.
If I'm traveling for work, I'm on a plane, um, I tend to either switch them off or take them out because
Okay.
already my ears are under pressure being,
Yeah, that oh wow.
yeah, so
Oh my goodness. Okay, gosh. Folks, if you have questions for Keji, please put it in the chat box. This has just been even though we've had I had the conversation about it, we didn't there's some things that we didn't talk about that I'm just finding out about this from about the hearing impairment and okay, so what do you wish society understood better about invisible disabilities? And it's not just um what's this problem? It's not just hearing visible in disabilities in general. What do you wish we knew, what or we understood better?
um I think if a disability is hidden, I don't know that we'll ever understand better. But I just kind of feel like with our human relationships
Yeah,
generally, um, if you're a Christian spirit-filled, discern, lean on the power of discernment. So if you feel someone is off or something feels off about that person,
yeah,
there might be a hidden something
okay,
somewhere. There might be a hidden disability
yeah,
somewhere. There was a time you did a series of being kind, we should be kind.
yeah,
Kindness is a fruit of the spirit.
mm,
You might not know, you might not see, you might not understand, but generally, if you're operating with the Holy Spirit and the fruits of the Spirit and being kind, um, if someone has a hidden, disability, they're impacted by your kindness. What started this conversation was an act of kindness from you.
mm,
You had sent a message. I remember the voice note, and you were like, you just said, "Oh, thank you for always coming around to greet me. I really like your calm and your quiet countenance. That kind of thing." That was the message that you sent. That was an act of kindness that opened the door for me
yeah,
to be able to feel comfortable to share.
yeah.
Because I
Oh
remember
my
when I got
gosh, I wasn't expecting it at all.
when I opened the message, I laughed and I thought, Lord, should I tell her? Should I not tell her? It's not that it's not that I'm quiet like that. This is the situation on the ground. So generally, if you're operating within the fruit of the spirit, then I think it opens the door for someone who has a hidden disability to be able to engage and speak. Because in the workplace and outside of the church and all we're doing is just it's a tick box exercise. So in the workplace, so do you have any accessibility needs? And it's not about the individual, it's really about them ticking their boxes. But in the church it should be a bit more than that. Not everybody will receive healing in the time that they want healing. But, if we're more empathetic and, we're just leaning on the spirit and discerning, then it makes it comfortable for someone to share, what their hidden disability is. I hope
Thank
that
you.
answered the question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. And before I go on to the next question, I think DBC is on. DBC, if you can, because you're a doctor, if you can, I mean, if you're able to unmute, that would be fine. To tell us about some other of the other hidden disabilities. I mean, off the top of my head, I would say epilepsy is another one. And because I remember coming across something on social media where this person packed on a disabled bay and got out of the car, and someone accused her of, "You're not even disabled. Why are you parking there?" And she said she didn't feel led to explain that, look, she was suffering from epilepsy. She suffers from epilepsy, and I think they gave her a disabled badge or something like that because it could happen at any time. But people just don't know. And they start anyway. So DBC, if you can help us talk about some of these other hidden disability that people may have that we don't know about. Are you still here with us?
Hi, Pastor. Okay, I'm here.
Hi. Yes, please just tell us what are the other things that we don't know because it's hidden, but
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Keji, for what you've said. I mean, some of it is things like diabetes, especially type 1 diabetes that can affect young people. And because of it, they can't do some certain things with sports or they have to wear a pump and things like that that people would not necessarily recognize initially. And especially if they have very labile blood sugars, they might need things like disability badges and adjustments to be made. So that's another one. Also, some people have had to go through things like they've had illnesses like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease that causes them to have they've had surgery, and so now they have a long-term colostomy bag, and that is hidden because they wouldn't necessarily show you and you wouldn't see that unless they reveal it to you. So that's another one. And even obviously there's such a great amount, everybody talks about autism and ADHD, and depending on the degrees to which you have it, but it's a hidden disability unless somebody actually reveals it to you or they're quite severe and you can see it. But those are the things, ulcerative colitis is one that people do not like talking about. It's inflammation of the colon and can cause a lot of problems. Some people are in hospital for months. And yeah, so that would be, and especially if you're young and or any age really, having to be dependent on a colostomy bag for the rest of your life is quite a big one. So yeah, those are the ones I can think of quite quickly. I think there would be others. I just can't think at the moment. And yeah, there's people that have some long-term eye diseases that are congenital and cause blindness. So some people at very young ages can have things like glaucoma and stuff like that, and they have to control it with eye drops and wear glasses. And unless they tell you how badly their vision is and they've had to make some adjustments, you wouldn't know. So that's another one.
thank you so much. Now, another revelation. I didn't know that even diabetics is at least I guess some form of it is a hidden disability. I wouldn't have included it as a hidden disability. Wow. Thank you for that, 𝗕𝗶𝗍. Really, thank you. Wow. Okay. Any questions for Keji before we go on? Oh, somebody said she noticed it, but she didn't want to bring it up. But someone with sight impairment, even with glasses. Oh, wow. Oh, thank you for sharing this, Yinka. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, even Morenica said she thought you were you were a quiet person. You know, I said to Keji, I think it was yesterday, I said I've never, even after she told me, I've not noticed her ear. Are you wearing one today? Okay, maybe because we're on Zoom.
Yeah, so I'm wearing them.
Okay. Oh, right now I can see it.
Yeah.
But even in church, I've not noticed it. But I'm sure if I see you tomorrow now, I will look at it.
Yeah.
I promise not to say. I promise not to say. But no, this is it's just been a meaningful conversation, as I said at the beginning. But looking back, Keji, with all this disability and everything, what has it taught you about life, really? What has it taught you about life? And also, has it made you understand how much strength you have? I know it's God that strengthens you, but tell us what has it taught you about life?
What has it taught me about life? I have a few things written down. Let me go through my notes.
Okay.
Oh God, what has it taught me about life? One of the things it's taught me is to lean on God.
Okay.
And you know where it says that with God, absolutely nothing is impossible. It's taught me to push through my discomfort. Just because I'm uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's okay for me to sabotage what God might want to do in my life.
Okay.
It's taught me that. It's taught me that God is a good, loving God. You know, and even though I have prayed for healing and my hearing has not been healed, God is still very much God, and He's still very much on my case and in the matter. You know, I mentioned to 𝗕𝗿𝗄𝗯 this morning that a few weeks ago, about 6 weeks ago, I had new hearing aids fitted. And when I was in the hospital, they check your ears, and the consultant said, "Oh, there's your left ear. I can see a foreign object in your ear." And I'm like, "What do you mean by you can see a foreign object?" And she said, "It looks like there's, I think an unnatural hair growth or hair got into your ear." And, I'm sitting down there thinking, I said, "Okay, so take it out or, do something about it." She
Yeah.
said, "I can't. You have to go to accident and emergency."
Wow.
And I just thought accident and emergency. And it was one of those days when I just thought, all I did was look up and say, "Father, I think you're going to have to handle this because I'm not going to accident and emergency. You go into A&E and you could be there for 12 hours. For me, it represents a waste of my time, even though this is important. So I'm going to do what I need to do. You sort this out." The process of traveling, I lost one of my devices. And usually it takes about 6 weeks to get them replaced, but I sent a message over the weekend that, "Guys, I've lost one of my devices. What do I need to do to replace it?"
Yeah.
And they gave me an appointment for Thursday this week.
Okay.
So I went in on Thursday. I got fitted for new devices and all that. And I just said to her, "Can you check inside my ears, please?" And she looked and she goes, "Oh, your ears look fine. There's nothing in them." So that tells me that God is in the matter. Has He healed it completely? No. So there's a possibility that He wants me to walk through the process and fulfill and achieve all that He would fulfill and achieve through me, regardless of what my disability or limitation is, so that He would be glorified in some way. I think that's one of the things I've learned. It's not that I'm resilient or anything like that. I could easily be one of those who went into victim mentality mode,
Yeah.
but I have people around me that keep me accountable as well. My mentor keeps me accountable, and you know, she's her hearing is fine, yes, but she would be telling me that if we're working on a goal, that doesn't affect your ears. If I'm like, oh, like I'm tired, because sometimes I get really tired, and so take a nap and get up and get moving. So it's not so much resilience, but that I have people around me as well that keep me accountable. And, God is God, God is faithful. He's working on me, through me, regardless of what, my limitation or disability might be. That's what it's taught me.
Thank you, Lord. Keji, you've actually made me so teary today. I don't understand.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, wow.
I'm so sorry. That wasn't the plan.
I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's, sometimes you think you have challenges, then you hear about someone, but then you see this person carrying it with so much grace, and it's God's strength, really. It's God's grace, and it's the one that's carrying you. But thank you. Thank you. And I'm so grateful to God for you. And the, yeah, I don't even know what else to say, but thank you. Okay, before we end, and please, if you have any questions or word of encouragement for Keji, please put it in the chat box. I'm sure it wasn't easy coming here to share about this, people finding out for the first time. But she is an amazing, amazing lady. Honestly, my respect and regard for you has just gone up another level. Seriously.
Thank
Um, yes, so what's next for Keji? What are you hopeful and expected about for the future?
What am I hopeful and expectant for? I'm still trusting and believing for healing before I depart this side of eternity at some point in God's time. But all I really want to do is just fulfill my full potential in Christ.
And
I
you
want to
will.
be one of those that fulfills everything that He has for me. I want to touch the lives He would have me touch, just fulfill my full purpose in Him.
And you will. And
Yeah.
you are doing that. When we were praying today, one of the things we prayed about was that even by sharing your story, it will impact lives. And even from what some people have put on the chat box, it has already started doing that. And for those who are going to watch later on, it will definitely make a difference. So, Keji, one last word for us, every one of us that is on this, about whatever, anything you have to say. Just
I think if it's one last word, I think all of us need to remember, regardless of, so I might have a hidden disability, some people have self-esteem issues, some people are unsure, some people are hesitant, everybody's dealing with something, and I just feel like we never minimize anyone, be
Sorry to
discerning.
interrupt. It's funny. I was just thinking before you came on, before this question, I was thinking that some people would say, okay, it's not a big thing like that. But everyone, don't minimize another person's circumstance or disability or whatever, because to you it's a big deal. But sorry, go on. I just wanted to bring that.
Yeah, never minimize anyone, whatever it is they're going through, whatever their journey is. Just be discerning and encouraging. We need to be raising the banner for Christ. Not pulling each other down, regardless of whatever anyone's disability or inability may or may not be.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, KJ. Honestly, thank you for sharing your story with us today. And you've given us real and powerful insight into your life. Thank you. Thank you for the encouragement that you've given. You've encouraged me. You probably don't know how much you've encouraged me. And I believe that you've encouraged the people here. Um, to everyone who's joined today's conversation, I hope that this has reminded you that not all challenges are visible, but every person we meet, we carry a story we carry something that is worth listening to. And as Keji said, let's be more discerning. Let's be kind to people. So thank you again, Keji. God bless you.